Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. These are the stars. Yes, they are. He loves to be scratched. He loves to be
I know you just shot me. Are you allowed to touch them?
Yes, you are. I can touch you, us. No.
I know.
I want to go away. Yeah. I watch
How are you?
It is.
You guys just take it over.
Watch, you cast it 3 times. Big donut.
You can have that.
He's 2 pounds of the roll.
Yeah, I would have a big dog sit down.
And then, 3/4 good, which are,
Yeah, like that.
and they're just rotating. But yeah, those are
There's more big dogs.
Yes, each dog has to he he's always and he has.
Hey, bud, how you doing? Where's the other half?
He's getting ready for all the
You got grandchildren? I got mine flying in right now.
I have to be there. Very hours to
And that is very late.
Sure.
So I said,
We did on 4:30 in the morning. Yeah.
I take a lot of shots. Actually, honestly,
I
have our personal
convention.
I had the
One
trees.
So that's what she did. So she told me that it's invited.
How are you?
My granddaughter found out.
Yeah, he's a golden.
He said, "See each other." What do you guys go The FBI was in the neighborhood. And I thought I get calls from all the neighbors.
Yeah, we do so, we do have a.
Yeah, mine are a little younger.
Definitely, we have 5.
This is the therapy that I have. They help you with stress, trauma. Victims, yeah, victims, sexual abuses, and all my children.
You know when you're doing it, I'll come in my business. They're opposed for you. I have to do something. Nice door. I'm Steve. How you doing?
Yeah, right at our That was it? So that's it. One of my friends well, you don't get it and get it over with. We've got a 14 and a 15-year-old.
What's up, Michael?
Yes, yes. You can do that, right? You go to community events, you can
I guess hello next time.
He's a golden.
Makes a huge difference. I started my first job as assistant director. So I started I just left a job in New York State as a county executive officer. So that tells you where we go from here.
I promise I'm not getting it at the door.
All right. Well, in our case, it was a long time ago, so it's okay. Wow. So I know that it was wow. You didn't want to do it. You're a star. How old is it? We 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. It's like you're young.
Very good.
Everything.
You know, you say one. That's it.
I promise myself. I want to
You're one smart cookie, I'll tell you. You are one smart I always think But I'm just saying, you're right. It's hard to think about.
It's what they make.
Right, we don't go here. If we ever meet everybody, we go to we even moved in here. You better see.
I'm ready whenever you are.
So are you expecting any more? Or was it-
I don't know, I heard the thing that like dogs are called, they're cleaning ownership. My walk was out for, probably playing it.
Thank you.
So cute. The little brown ones. Traumatized. The little ones.
In the meantime, it means so much.
There's a lot going on.
There was a little girl, like 10 years old, and she had to get home. She was still testifying in front of the jury. And they took the dog. Even though they were testifying. So this police officer no. But he's black. Yeah. He is not, I think. I like baseball and my little play. I'll tell you a funny story. And in those days, there were the Yankees and the Mets. My mother said she was not the Mets because they were being put to go. And to the day she died, my mother just she loved the Mets. Just a huge Mets fan. My father, Yankees fan. I heard you once. And I went to the so a bunch of us used to know, not that we ever yeah, so the guys loved it. I also Even the last 15 years, they need to split this into all of them through, right?
That is his training. That is one of the
Scary when they first start driving this one.
These are but this is yeah, exactly. That's right. How are you? Yeah, so the issue is and then you can take this on and make sure that you it's only
We don't. Get some water for me.
Last time I had to do this early, it was over. I said like sugar bushels that I go back to the break and look and see if there's any.
You got coffee? Yeah, I'm gonna go home.
They already were like letting me down. I'm like, I know.
That's a good season.
Right.
How would the season tickets expensive? Big bucks? That's cool.
But people have this money, they'll just go crazy and run around.
I've wiped them all.
I made sure that go up. That's my
It's very beautiful. And then they have another area. I don't know, ivy or something that's growing. So you walk like under grapevines outside. It's really red candles. It's really pretty. And the beach. Even yesterday, because you're trying to do some animals on the beach, and it's very fun. So it's really nice. I'm not used to it. You have like 3 and 4.
I think you're right.
So work outside. Isn't that funny that I mean, it's a reason. She was fast. I hear you all.
Some people.
No, it's the humidity. Never seen it. It's nice to see you.
I don't see how they could,
You call me and I'll look at you.
Reggie. Sure.
It was just Verizon telling me something. An unusual thing.
Why would I want to pay twice?
Here, do you want
They want all that cereal. You got
So then I really have to work on
like a parking. Just be a good citizen. Ready? Come on, ready.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Deputies, Dogs, and Donuts. I think there is not really a better way to spend a Thursday morning, so I'm glad we're all doing this together. And I want to thank the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office for everything they do for our community and for coming out today. I'd like to introduce Captain Sant, who will be giving a presentation on crime prevention in our area. And any questions you have, we'll take some questions at the end as well. So thank you all.
Morning.
I'm just practicing with this mic because I get yelled at a lot in the Delaware Alliance. We can't hear you! And just so you guys realize that, police officers by trade are really not good public speakers. All right? And I try to tell people you have to do it often to get better, but it still never feels real good. We're those silent operators that come in the middle of the night. Bad guys, we whisper to bad guys too often. Typically, in the words of the Miranda warnings. I'm sure you guys have never read the Miranda warnings, is that correct? But the day's early, so look out. I know where to find you. Yeah, so I want to thank you all for being here this morning. I really mean it. We're delighted to be able to come here and spend this time with you because it shows us and it demonstrates to us that you care. You care about the community, you care about what's going on around you, you care about what's impactful to you. We know that you care about meeting us, not just hearing some of the stuff you see, you read on TV. I know unless you live in a bubble, in which I know you don't, sometimes it may feel that way to all of us. Sometimes I wish we did, but we don't. So I wanted you to be able to spend this time here this morning, answer some questions, have some, I'm not gonna eat donuts, no matter what you say. I know you guys are gonna talk about that later on at the pool. We got those cops eat donuts, and we got pictures of it too. Don't believe it. I know you do. All right, so, hey, listen, let's do this. I've been with you guys for 4 years now. You realize I'm the commanding officer of District 4, West Delray Beach. I'm blessed to have some of my peers with me today, and my subordinates. Doesn't sound good, subordinates, right? Sure. My subordinates, deputies. These guys, these men and women are incredible. We have a couple of new additions that I want to introduce you to, in the way of Reggie and Milo, and our newest addition here. You've changed his name twice. So what we agree on?
Charlie.
Charlie. All right, Charlie. What were we going with in the beginning?
Rusty.
Rusty. Who agrees with me with Rusty? Doesn't he look at Rusty? Charlie. Well, Charlie. I got overruled again. I guess I got to stop saying that because everybody believes Charlie's the winner. So we're very blessed to have him. So I'll have our therapy talk team come up. This is just a sample of a few of the team we have. You can answer some really good questions. I know one of you guys who asked the question that wanted to know the difference between a therapy dog and a support dog. Great question. Great question. And I can answer that question and really give you a good answer, but I would rather provide you with an excellent answer from the handlers themselves. Okay? So let's talk about crime. Who's interested in hearing your crime stats here? Right? So before I give you an answer, what do you guys think? What's your perception? I teach all the time crime prevention, and I used to be a community policing sergeant many years ago. What's crime? How do you see crime? I can explain something and tell you about crime stats, but what does that mean to you? And what does crime stats mean to you?
Theft.
Theft, right? It's the amount of the number, right? And percentages of crime and what? Any specific area?
Feels in the community, I guess, is determined by the stats that you're talking about.
Right. So they did a study in New York. Anybody here ever hear of the broken windows theory? Anybody? Broken windows. When you guys get a chance today, in between your busy work schedules, I'm jealous, trust me. In between your really that busy work schedules, do this. Go online and just check out broken windows. All right? It's an incredible study, well worth your couple minutes read. And a lot of what I'm saying to you this morning will make a lot more sense to you too, based on that theory. So, in short, it's this. People will perceive crime and their safety based on what? Their feelings, their perception, their emotion, their reality, right? There was a study, a part of the study was, they did interviews in one of the major metropolitan cities, I believe it was New York or New Jersey, up north in the Northeast. And they interviewed tons of folks in the neighborhood and says, how do you feel, how safe you are? And many of them said, we don't feel safe at all. And they asked, why do you not feel safe? Well, because we really never see a policeman. The only time we see a policeman is when they're driving by in their car. Now, we know the police are here because we see them periodically driving by, but we don't really feel safe. What's your thoughts on that? Why would that happen? Yeah, the officers, I assure you, the officers are there, we're responding to calls, we're attentive. But they did another study in another neighborhood, and they pulled the crime stats. Now, the crime stats in that one particular neighborhood, where the residents said they didn't feel safe because they only saw the officers driving by in their cars. They did another study in another neighboring community, same percentage of crime. Everything was the same, the demographics all the same. But for a month straight, the commanders put the deputies out on foot, on patrol, walked the beat, walked the community, had meetings like this, right? Interacted with the community members, but the groups were exactly the same. They were both transitional neighborhoods, they were both challenging neighborhoods, they both had a fair amount of crime. But when they went back and they asked and they interviewed, how do you feel about crime? What is your perception of crime? Do you feel safe? Overwhelmingly, the community says, hands down, we feel so safe. Well, in all actuality, they were no safer, statistically speaking, than they were from their neighbors, 3 miles, 4 miles down the road. So again, why did I leave an opening today of thanking you all for being here? Because it shows me that you care. It shows me that you're interested, you're invested, you want to hear, you want to build this relationship with us, you want to continue to enhance this relationship with us. Not just when you call. Not just when you call when there's an emergency or crisis, we'll always be there for you, you know that. I hope you should know that. But what about the other times? Now you understand, if I was sitting here every morning, all week, every day, all week, you'd be wondering, what is that captain really doing? He spends a lot of time here with us, right? But I can't do that. These officers can't do that. It's not realistic, and that's not what they're asking. But what you are asking is, I should deliver. That's what the sheriff, Rick Croucher, that's what he demands that he delivers through us, through his commanders. Being up front, being out there. And I'll tell you guys, the reality is you guys are in a fantastic place. You really are. Crime, and I don't want to say, I don't want you to walk out here this morning and have a false sense of security that was provided to you by yours truly. But I want you to be aware, okay? I want you to be informed. Statistically speaking, you guys are off the grid. I can't measure it. I mean, we've had, I don't have my glasses on anymore to tell you, we've had a minimal amount of crime here. I want to say a half a dozen scams. Thank God nobody was hurt, okay? Physically hurt is really what I'm really concerned with first. But that's why the dogs are here as well, because guess what? After, I was sharing this with a couple of you this morning, you don't have to be physically knocked to the ground and your purse be taken and your wallet be stolen. You don't. That in itself leads to a lot of trauma. But just the mere fact of being called from your home by a complete stranger and feeling violated because now you've just, what? You've given them money, you've given them bank accounts, you fall prey to a scam. So besides the fact of being embarrassed, okay, a lot of these cases are not even reported. Besides the fact of being utterly embarrassed that you fell for something like this, let alone telling your spouse, how do you explain that $15,000 has gone out and you got a handful of scratch-offs? This happens. And these scammers get on the phone, they convince you to scratch these numbers off, give the barcode numbers in the back, you go and spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. It's the truth. And now you provide them with these numbers and you're giving them all away. So I'm not shocked when I say this to you that a lot of these cases do not go reported for the reasons I just explained to you. But I want to tell you guys this, please. There's 15, 20 of us here today. Please tell 2 or 3 people. Force multiplier, we've just touched 60, 70 people. And I believe some of it is being taped. So please listen to me. Feel no shame in being human. Feel no shame in being human. We need you to report this. We cannot help you. We will not judge you. Law enforcement officers will not judge you. But we can't help you if we don't know. We provide you with as much information as we can. We provide the services afforded to you at the district level. You can always come down for information. There's information you can find online. We do presentations. We've done presentations right here in this room, right, Tom? We've done presentations. We'll continue doing it. But I will tell you this. On and I hate to say this, on many occasions, right after we've done a comprehensive presentation, a full, not an overview done by the captain, but a full presentation down to the nitty gritty on how they do it. There is still a percentage of people that were in that room, asked rich questions, and still were victimized that night. That night by a scammer. All right, and remember this, and the last point I'll make on this is this. Criminals look at it as a career as well. You're a career criminal. Well, where do they come up with that? They're career criminals. They have invested their time, energy, sacrifice, and their money to a lifetime of crime. And that is their chosen career. If they could write that off on the taxes, they would. They would. But as proficient as other careers are and professionals are, they see it that way too. So they're constantly changing their tactics. They're constantly changing their methodology and their means. Their motive is the same, but they're constantly changing their tactics so they can get to you. They know law enforcement is a competing interest, and we're constantly telling you what they're doing, so they got to change as well. If not, they'll be broke. All right, so let's do this. Any questions for me so far that I didn't cover as far as scams go and just the perception of crime? You guys got a homework assignment already with what? The broken windows? All right, you guys will like that. I think you really will like that study. It'll give you a good understanding of a lot of things, just on the communities around you, how it impacts, and the philosophy of crime and perception of it. All right, sir.
I have a suggestion. It applies to you, and it applies to our community too. It is nice that policemen drive by and keep an eye on things. Stop that car occasionally and get up. Just stand next to a car, people see you. For 5 minutes, 10 minutes, breathe the fresh air. Then get back in the car, go somewhere else. That would help the perception.
Andy, I won't only accept that suggestion, I'm going to implement that suggestion, right? And that's one of the core fundamental principles we lead on in that broken windows theory is to get out of that corner, right? Get on bikes. We have policemen on bikes. Tom West, your security director here, works very, very closely with us. So not only is his staff here out there as our eyes and ears, okay? We're also layering and supplementing their staff as well. All right, so thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
I think our take on seeing police cars in the community, well, first of all, we've got Cambridge is there. They're here 24/7.
Right.
And I see them all the time, and they're around. I see you going through the community. Two things went on in my mind. One is it's an accident that requires calling Palm Beach County Police. Or if a lot of people don't know, sometimes cutting from Atlantic to Linton, we give them the ability to cut across, come down. So they may be due to get to another area where there's not as much traffic.
Let me just add something that,
Yeah.
and that is, some of it, but there's a lot of times, more times than not, they will come and they will patrol around the property, they'll park in high vantage points on the property. For that purpose is visibility. Again, you can never have enough visibility. So they may or may not be cutting through, and they may be coming to a call, but a lot of times they are literally patrolling through our developments, or they're stopping somewhere in high visibility points of interest.
That's good.
So Tom, thank you for bringing that up. I'm holding to a thought I have on that, but let me take this question.
I have a question, which hasn't got to do with crime, but it certainly has to do with the function of the police department. We live on Atlantic Avenue, which has the highest amount of traffic accidents. That's what I fear every day when I leave here, is whether or not I'm gonna come back safely. Now, we got a young fellow got killed right outside the gate here. We're going through a stop sign, which appears to be not abided by very many people. And the people are making the right turns without ever stopping at a red light. Is there any way that we can educate people so that they will drive more safely and be more aware of what's around them? It isn't just crime that's gonna kill people.
No, it's an excellent point and observation, and it comes with great merit. to your point, is I was gonna cover this, and it was a good segue into where we were gonna go this morning. We're up about 13, don't hold me to it, because these numbers fluctuate often, but the last I checked is, as of this week, we're up 13%. Just in this area along the West Era Beach in car crashes, 13%. What do you guys think? A little high? 13%? So I know it kind of tricked you into it, because 13% of what, right? 13% of one crash is not too bad. 13% of 50 crashes, not too good. But we are down, we're doing better. And just so you guys know this, every month, you guys attend the Delray Alliance? You guys anything? All right, so the Alliance of Delray is, I attend and I speak at the meetings monthly. And one of the things I speak of is the traffic crashes. And I implore people in the community, slow down. Leave yourself time. Leave yourself time. Folks, you guys know that, how many have been here for the last 4 years, 5 years? Okay, so you guys will find truth in this statement. Things have changed. New buildings are popping up. How many people are snowbirds? You go into town, you leave town, you come back and go, Harry, what happened here? Well, when was this building put up? So you're looking for landmarks. Trust me, my parents were professional snowbirds. Right? And my mother would say all the time, what's going on? And she blamed me for that building no longer there, because that was a landmark, right? Make a left-hand turn. What's the name of the street? I don't know, but it's that building there. So what happens is, through growth and change, right? That building is old. We love new stuff. It's drawing attention to the community, the growth of the community. So they knock down that building. They put up a brand new building that resembles nothing like that building. And my mom was completely lost for an hour. But she was right on the same block. I say that, God rest her soul, but we laughed about it, but it's kind of funny. But so my point is so I say to my own mother, so where were you going? Where were you rushing if you were lost? Why? If you're lost, you think you would slow down and figure it out. But what I'm realizing is people, and this goes back to the anxiety, people get very anxious. They come down, they get lost, they get anxious, and that's what? That's my patrolman. They're driving down. If you drive down Atlantic Avenue, any one of my deputies, including myself, if there's a person that's not from the community or from the area, that things have changed, that landmark we spoke of has changed, they get anxious, and what do? They stop. I mean, how many of you guys have been behind people, all of a sudden they just stop, like it was a phantom ghost that ran across Atlantic Avenue, and we laughed, but it's funny, but as long as it's not a crash, but they just stop. Or I try to explain, instead of going down maybe another 100 yards or maybe a U-turn at a designated location where you can make a U-turn, they just said no. Their anxiety ramps up. If they go any further into the abyss, right, they're going to be really lost. So they have to make this left-hand turn right now from the center lane, right, from the center lane. And the rest of us, we're driving and we're victimized by this. And how many times I'm going to a meeting where, at least as a policeman, I have the means to do what? Push a button and my truck lights up like a Christmas tree, and I have the authority to stop you and cite you. Now, tell me the truth. How many people, non-law enforcement in the room, would love to have that ability sometimes when they're driving on Atlantic Avenue, right? Yeah, how many times you say, just one time, you say two things. Just one time, I wish I had those darn police lights, and I'd stop that guy, and I would write them $1 gazillion worth of tickets. And I've learned over all the years, 31 years of doing this job, that civilians, thank God that you guys have not chosen to be police officers, because you guys are harsh. Harsh. One lady says, I would make them foreclose in their house. I'd write them so many tickets. I said, man, show me around a stop sign. Throw the book at them. And I also learned this. The ones that are harshest on their neighbor, they're the worst ones. Throw the book at them. Don't give me a warning. Give me a warning. But get them. It's just making me laugh. But on a serious note, we're taking that very serious. We have unmarked cars, we have traffic cars, we have motorcycles out there. Sometimes I'm reluctant to send motorcycles through a community because it really shakes things up and rattles things. People get very nervous when they see a bunch of motorcycles rolling through. So I have to measure that. Also, we are actively engaged in a community advisory board. So what does that look like? We've worked together, instead of a bunch of cops getting in the room and stating the obvious, that we have a traffic problem, we have speeding. A bunch of cops in the room talking about this is, what good does it do? Commanders talk about it, we put our subordinates out there, we put the deputies out there, and we do it. But we had an epiphany. Sheriff Bradshaw, many years ago, an executive staff through the command, we said, we gotta do something more. We have to change, we have to get a little more asymmetrical. So we're bringing the community members in. And the community members are coming in, sitting down collectively with the commanders from West Delray Beach, Boynton Beach, Boynton, all over the county. And we're bringing in segments of community members, from business people to retirees to younger people, and they're sitting down quarterly with the command, and we're working through these problems. We're bringing up traffic. This month, just so you know, the advisory board meets next week on the 26th, and the topic that we're working towards resolution is bringing it from the community's perspective as to working towards a solution, a viable, lasting solution to see how we can get people to slow down. I will promise you this. There is no silver bullet here. People are people. And the last point I'll make about it is this. Have you guys seen since COVID, since the release of COVID, since the pandemic hit us and we're coming out, have you seen the noticeable difference of people's mannerism, behavior, especially out there on the roadway? Or is it just me? I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I have an educated hypothesis of what it is, all the culmination things we spoke of, anxiety, mental health, disrupted, the shutdowns, the lockdowns disrupted a lot of people's system and rhythm in their doctor's appointments and their medication. So there's a whole bunch of mitigating factors that add to that, but we have to do better, okay? So you had a question about the therapy dogs and between the therapy dogs, anxiety, and the service, is that correct?
Well, right now, these are therapy dogs. Then you have emotional support dogs. Then you have service dogs. And a lot of people get confused between the three.
No, very good question, Rory. So I'm going to call up Teresa Gramani, one of our handlers and team members here from my office. And Teresa will give you an overview from the sheriff's office perspective on what we use the dog as. And then maybe that'll clarify some of the questions you have. Okay?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So those are really great questions. As I explained to you all earlier, therapy dogs, so we are law enforcement therapy dogs, and what we are used for specifically is traumatic events, people in crisis, anybody who might have been victimized. So we go out on calls for service within the community, in the whole county. These dogs have very specialized training, and they have certifications, okay? That's very different, so now we're going to talk about, it's very different from an emotional support dog, okay? Now, emotional support dog, anybody can have, okay? And sadly, you basically can go online, you can get a doctor to say you need an emotional support dog. You can say, I want my dog to be an emotional support dog, and no training whatsoever. The doctor gives you the paperwork, his emotional support dog, and the story, okay? And that's a very abused program, okay? A lot of times it's abused because people need that for, sometimes renters need it, right, to get into the community. They might not take a certain dog unless it's an emotional support dog, or they might charge you certain monies unless it's an emotional support dog. And that also became very abused on the airlines, which is why they've taken that away. So there's no training. You can use your dog, you can go online, you can get an online doctor to say you need an emotional support dog, and boom, my dog's an emotional support dog in the store. So that's really there's nothing to that, okay?
My question on that is, you have a therapy dog that is certified, and I know they go to hospitals and stuff like that, and they're well behaved. The emotional support dogs, like you said, they get a name. But because of COVID, and as you said about people driving and everything else, there's lots of times that I see now, during COVID, people adopted a lot of dogs and everything like that. Some of them are keeping them, some of them not. some of our emotional support dogs really do help the person that they're living with.
Absolutely.
It, just petting them and
Sure.
having them in the house.
Sure, comfort, they're comfort dogs, that's
It
what they are.
would be nice if some of those dogs did get some training like you have here. They don't have to be service animals, which I'm aware of that. But it would be nice if they had training like this, where they're relaxed and they're around people. Because I find some of the emotional support dogs that I run into wag their tail, but if you go to reach down to say hi to them, they snare at you.
And that's because of the lack of right certifications and training.
They're not
And there's no
socialized.
protections for those emotional support dogs either, right? You can't just bring them into a restaurant or bring them into the supermarket. Technically, you're not supposed to do all of that, okay, with the emotional support dogs, right? And that's very different from who has all of the protections is a service dog, okay? Because that falls under the American with Disabilities Act, okay? So that is completely different. Those dogs are protected by ADA, HIPAA, and everything else. They can fly, they can go anywhere, and nobody can say anything as long as they are legitimate service dogs, okay? And those are the three differences between those dogs.
And who has to wear the outfit? The service dog? Because I.
Technically, they don't have to wear an outfit. They just have to have the paperwork.
The paper.
But the thing is with the service dogs too, because they are protected under the ADA, okay, you can only ask very limited questions with a service dog.
That's right.
Very limited questions. So if I were to go into a grocery store, let's say, that didn't want dogs, and I have a service dog, they can't say, well, why do you need a service dog? No, is that a service dog? You have a paperwork. That's it. Those are the only questions they can ask.
Do you have to have the papers with you, or can you just say it's a service dog?
No, you can't just say it's a service dog. You do have to have your paperwork. It's very difficult to get service dog paperwork and certifications.
Just real quick, if I can chime in, before I was law enforcement, I was actually in the restaurant business for 20-something years. So the only two questions you can really ask is it a service dog? Yes. What service does it provide? That's it. It's an emotional distress, sorry, or I'm lying. Okay, good. That's it.
But
No other thing
unfortunately,
you can
people
ask.
do lie, right?
And
And
people
so-
lie all the time,
No.
but you can tell, a therapy dog usually gets 2 years of training. Okay, I remember this, the restaurant I worked at was a high profile restaurant, but I remember this lady said that her Rottweiler, I think it was like 200 pounds, was a therapy dog, service dog, was literally pulling her down the ramp. And I'm like, yeah, no, sorry, but not tonight. And that's it. But the only question we can ask, what service does it provide? And that's it. And you can tell the ones. This one guy was, he had a problem with his eyesight. It was the most amazing German Shepherd ever. The dog would walk in with carrying his own water bottle. And he would go right under the table, and that's it. You wouldn't even know he was there, except for all the people going, oh my God, that dog's amazing.
But they are federally protected,
And
because we
they're
have to be
federally
very
protected.
careful with the questions you ask, because that is ADA, that does fall under the Disabilities Act. All right, so we are gonna bid you all adieu. We interacted before, but we have another event that we need to go to, unfortunately, so it was a pleasure meeting all of you.
Good job, guys. Appreciate you coming down. All right. So, any other questions? Catherine, you have to leave? Okay, I forgive you, you know that. Hey, before I lose my audience here real quick, Kristen, can you come up here with me for a second? I got a little surprise for Kristen. Let me shoot them. Yeah. All right, I only carry them on Mondays. Yeah, I hope I don't embarrass you, but I'll try real hard. So Kristen has been a tremendous partner. I get incredible feedback from Deputy Martinez. She's very active here, obviously working real hard for the club and for the community. So I wanted to take a minute just to recognize her and say thank you in front of everybody. And I want to present her with one of my commander's challenge points. So this is a little gift from us, from the Sheriff's Office. She's demonstrated that true partnership with us. She's demonstrated the fact that she's fully engaged with us on the benefit of everybody. Okay, so here's one of my commander's points. Any other questions for me? I'll stick around for a couple of minutes. I have another staff meeting in a little bit. Anything I can answer publicly here at the podium or?
No, I just want to make a statement. I met you when you first started down here, and I know what you were charged to do, gathering the communities around here and doing what you do. And I just want to thank you on behalf of Glen Eagles, because we know you're out there, and we know you care, and we know you're taking care of us. And that's one of the reasons, and Tom, and you, I know you go back and forth with all the directors of security, and you're watching out for us all the time. It's not talk. So we really appreciate it, Captain.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you very, very much.
You're right. It's horrible. No, because you see these kids speeding like crazy. They're cutting in that lane. Right now, it's in the middle. They go back and forth. The worst problem.
I don't know on that. I'll give you guys a.
Okay.
Because you don't have to stay there.
In my body, I don't, because I don't want to say.
Like I said, we signed up for it, just like service military, you know, we ran it out, we 30 minutes, taking out, we do it.
How many deputy sheriffs per day swap? I'm gonna do a follow-up. So how many deputies? So I have eight.
It was great. Terrific job. You did a terrific job.
I have eight. Okay, now, so ask the captain this. Of the eight, plus the sergeant, of the eight,
No, I.
training, 6 days, holidays, what's your minimum standard? So what is my minimum standard? That I would need when I go
No worries.
Control center, control center, technical cycles, I can get you on top in 25 minutes. Maybe, really, so it's just fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, five deputy sheriffs, that's.
Tom, we'll talk to you. Okay, thank you.
Or sign, my vision okay, this now, on a daily basis. Now, it's gonna have
Gotta take care of
to. So the point that I'm making is, great question. Many times, we have to finalize, the deputy sheriff gets to the scene, we render out to the person in the crash.
You do. We had the South County Golf League.
They pay for that separately. Great question, I love it. So Kane's point, listen, that's.
Oh, I can do it.
Yeah.
No. Read on it. So Kane's point. 11 square miles of roadway. That's how big it is. So Kings do, what they do is they contract with the sheriff's office and they pay specifically for 2 deputies.
Their security is
So that's the one I was.
Yeah,
That's the 31.
And I'm
that one he gave was another one.
You
can make an argument.
So they pay to have them there. So it was, God forbid, an emergency, you know, serious emergency. They know in the contract, they know all hands on deck. So if I need to pull, that's on the contract.
They're not in your file.
So, no, they're not counted on my file. And here's the downside. If
because we have a contract as an example. If they should go, if one of the deputies has to go to court or they're on vacation, I have to take, the patrol sergeant has to take my contract, take one of my eights, let's say the full complement of 8, and we're all like, yes, we got a full complement of 8 today, and we have to backfill that contract. To make sure that that contract.
I don't think people realize the area. We see.
Well, listen, that's good, that's good.
Yeah, we only have.
We see accidents. What you are surrounded by.
And it all goes back to people less patient,
That's nice.
tolerant people, all this stuff. So,
Yesterday, I was
We
on
talk
with Andrew. He had surgery.
People
And,
who.
you know, recently I got some calendar.
Insurance, yeah.
well, that's, well,
Yeah,
actually,
They do. If you're making a, you
Oh,
can make
yeah, I
a
understand.
right hand, you turn, stop.
Right.
Well, because, yeah, well, actually shot it.
They know.
Yeah. So, they can figure it out.
And they know, they wait, they do that in a-
Yes.
They make it so they don't.
I'm also.
Can't
Reserve.
And I mean,
So we have, auxiliary
I
officers.
had my car and I was walking in
Now,
the
the
car.
auxiliary, and then so
Not the car.
auxiliary,
Guy.
the out, and
The-
the assistant health.
A regular car.
They just can't do anything without their
I
expertise.
mean, that's, did not stop.
The,
Reserve officers.
I jokingly call our sports staff at the,
They don't.
tell me which one you were.
Well, I'm going on a cruise next week,
So you
vacation, so.
we talked about it.
Yeah.
You know that on a cruise ship, there's a long 24 hours.
I got guidelines set in place. It's trying to help me out, but I know after the first 2 days, it's gonna, you know, it's good.
It's gonna be out the window.
That's pretty much good.
Yeah, especially for work.
They train us, they were told us to go. First of all, we are not supposed to chat. They are to be very, they are well-dressed, approach to people with
I think I talked to you about this for a year.
Yeah.
In 1 year, I went on 7 cruises. When I was way younger, like a long time ago, but after so many,
But that's the way
so many,
Cambridge.
a lot of times people would want some kind of guidance on cruise, so they would have to pay for it. And, well, yeah, that was so cool. At the same time.
And I told him, I'm very excited to apply. I said, I said, you guys have nothing, whatever you go.
I've been available for like 3 hours a day.
Yeah, but that's
And
not
it was
enough.
the funniest thing about every
He
single
said,
person.
why?
They always have two, always, and I'm like.
What is the difference
This
between
is,
you going through
this is a culinary person.
Swap
Green.
and there's 2 cars
Because
parked?
you can eat.
You go by, there's a possibility you see somebody who's out between the car.
The midnight.
And they're
buffet,
out, and there's
you know,
nobody else
it's
around
always
here.
something.
What's the difference if you go to our garage, some people between the 2 cars getting out, and nobody else in the garage? I said, that's the reason.
And then we'll get, once
I
we
said,
get more
the
people
car
back
parked back.
in, we can do
You
another
can't
thing
do
with
that
that
because
soon. I
we
know
have to
Tom said you guys have the best team here
Well, you
a
know.
couple of times a year. And then,
Yeah.
I do something similar to what they do, but it kind of covers everything. So we'll get together and do that. No, never. Is that the one you wanted?
They're not supposed to get out of the car to look.
One of my favorites.
They're not supposed to. So they will
They
do
just
one
have a
and
big
then
smile on their face.
if
You know,
you're
if
habitual.
they get nothing else out of this bullshit together, they're gonna like
It's
this.
a one. It's a one.
It's funny, we did what, something like this at one day.
But we have reasons, but let me. But in all.
I talked to her, she's an elderly lady, and it was this.
You come down home, I wanna see
It was
you.
funny, oh, I won't tell you.
Right. They were cute, they were
Around there.
hilarious, because they hold nothing back.
Yeah.
I
And
think
whatever's
that
on their mind, they let you know whatever's on their mind.
Gets out of the
Some of
car.
them you're right, the other ones, you know,
and they'll see
A lot of
now.
people don't speak.
And
And
they can't move.
the funny thing is, very simple of, I know where you're from.
They don't even know.
And all of a sudden, everything that they've never talked about rolls right out.
That
Also,
person is
and
sitting there for hours.
I was raised by grandmothers, my two grandparents, so, and I was,
So
still
now
that's
they're
just the
doing
greatest
it. But,
generation.
you know,
My grandmother went to
it's a
school
learning curve.
on how
They
to
did know,
force
but
trump
they're only 7 miles.
in Cuba when she was like little because they didn't really have cars, you know, so, and so she went from seeing
I don't
that
have right.
to seeing people from Japan, now it's just with the people to the we'll never see that, you know, so that's what.
Oh, goody. That's a smart move.
For the folks back at the office,
Excellent.
we keep them penned in, we keep them handcuffed to their desks.
Oh, pink ones or?
No, that's.
No pink handcuffs? No,
It's like I finished on mine.
no, no. No, I was gonna say, well, anyway, thank you for all your
Thank you.
help.
So-
Is that what it is?
We were joking about that, yeah, the fact that you're not so long.
Wait, Thompson Donuts, right?
Yes, it's a stigma. We won't say we don't still enjoy it. But
I have to put blinders on when I go by Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts, Jupiter Donuts.
You know why? Because they work, when you work at 3 o'clock in the morning, when you work.
Oh, I know.
You need coffee,
You need that sugar.
you need
You
sugar.
need to have, you know.
So they buy crazy, they just say alert.
And the only
Nothing
thing that,
happens at that time, you gotta do.
Red Bull, whatever.
yeah, well, the only thing that used to be open back then were the Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
And that's, that we would go, because that would be the only thing that was ever open 24/7.
Yeah. Well, the McDonald's in Boca is in case you ever get stuck.
Yeah, well, no, we have Wawa and stuff like that now, so we have some of those places, but no, before, when I first got here, after 10 o'clock,
They
there was
go.
nothing, everything was shut
Hey,
down.
tell me what's gonna happen on Atlantic Avenue when they start widening it. You guys gonna be around?
They're always around.
Well, you know that.
We won't be on Atlantic.
You know, yeah, you know they're gonna widen, and you know it's gonna come right to our gates, and it's gonna be mass insanity.
When are they gonna do that?
Next year.
Are they gonna make it possible marketplace?
No, up here,
Oh, okay.
from Hagen Ranch, all the way up here, all the way to Jog and everywhere. We're gonna be using Linton a lot, so my suggestion is maybe you keep an eye on Linton,
So you know what's funny
because
thing is,
people on Linton don't stop at the stop sign.
so you guys have that
It's
stop
stop if
sign,
you want.
you guys have that stop sign between yourself and Addison, and that was brought up to me by Andrew and Tom.
It's tough.
And I actually sat there in my market patrol
You
car,
did.
and
It's fun to me.
they still ran.
Yeah, do you know what's amazing?
I'm like, of course I
And
did.
it's little.
But I'm like, I'm literally right here, and I'm
It's
sitting
Well,
right
it's a bad habit, they don't
there.
even.
They don't even look.
Well, you know, you have that warning that's flashing. Yeah, the flashing, and then you get to the stop sign, and it's flashing.
Unfortunately, it's just people, a
Well,
lot of
wait,
people
we
are used
won't
to
be
not
able to
having
get on
cars
the
go the other
Atlantic, so
way.
you're gonna use
So they
that.
just.
Oh, I
use
use that.
We had
I like
conversations.
it.
No, I know that, but when they do Atlantic, and they're the
I think I'm
only
not-
Luma,
Traffic is
That
always
was
gonna
going
be.
Luma is all gonna get rented
Also,
out.
the funny thing is
There's
coming.
300 rentals.
So where is
And I'm not kidding,
House.
it was
They're putting a shopping center in the front, and Luma is not there.
We do this,
It's gonna be popular.
and they just get.
It
We're
is.
gonna dedicate
Didn't even,
traffic.
again, I'm an SUV. I'm
It
riding
is.
a bicycle.
It really, really is taking my life here, between 3 and 5.
No, so they-
Well, you know, it's crazy, I was driving home yesterday, I work in the district, on the road here.
I
And this
just
car,
see your eyes,
filled out completely, luckily I was paying attention.
you know, half of them pull over before I start my lights. What do you
Didn't
think?
even look.
I know, as soon as I walk up, I know.
Holy cow, I looked down and I felt
Sorry.
bad, just kind of see.
And I can't
Really?
believe
Oh,
how.
no. Just sorry because. Because I had this is something I do every day.
Making people
Yeah,
laugh.
so when
Well,
I don't
we
go
say,
on
you know,
appointments like
I
this,
would say,
I get out, I know my best, I don't do wherever this trouble is.
in our town.
Four seasons of.
Well, we thank you, they get
Just go
confused.
with the Atlantic.
Well,
At night, they were complaining
can you
about
talk
track
about
racing.
the cows were?
Yeah.
Weren't really track
Farming
racers, but
improved,
you know how lots of these cars are these days.
farmland became
So
available.
once the
Yeah.
light would
Community,
turn
the town
up
bought
green,
that
heading
farm.
north on 441.
Well, yeah, they started to be here. No, no, no.
So
It's not
with
even
that, we
AG.
had.
No, the
traffic
agricultural
initiative,
reserve
we got back
has
to
now
it.
been sold,
We
and they're
pulled over
building Valencia.
116 cars.
you know.
No, here we sell everything.
Yeah, no, and so, you know,
Once you get
Farmington was a.
No, Farmington really is quiet town.
Till,
Well, where do we sell stuff for yourself?
so they fly, it's almost almost all.
Yeah, I live in a town of 7,000 people, you know, so, yeah.
We drive racing.
But I mean,
they're
here,
like,
if
you know,
the right
we have
person wants it,
all
they'll sell
1,000.
anything in the AG.
There's only 8 of us, so we have, 8 deputies and 30.
Well, you live in Florida, one of these
On
days
top
it's
of the
gonna
other
break
call,
off.
we're like 1,000 is just impossible.
Right.
But hundreds.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a lot. And they were dead.
Brothers, thanks for having me.
I'm just letting you know that you
You ready?
said there was an
See
issue.
you later. Good seeing you.
You know, we're fixing it. All right, fixing it.
Let me go grab my phone and I have something for you guys. Yes. We can go wherever.
We're recruiting Bud. I'm gonna put Bud in my cousin's neighborhood.
There you go.
That's okay.
So they're home.
I'll be the good cop and Bud will be the bad cop.
I have my challenge points too.
Yeah, we're in the.
And,
Nice to meet you guys. Have a good one.
nice to meet
Whatever
you.
you want.
Which side do you prefer?
Yeah, I was gonna go start forward.
This is for you.
Star Forward, thank you for teaching me.
But country, that's why I put the flag.
Country's close to my heart, so that works, right?
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
I'm looking
Thank
at the
you.
flowers. I'm looking at the flowers
Appreciate it.
on the phone. I'm thinking, hey, that's not Jeff's
No,
phone.
it's my phone. Oh, that's a good picture.
not personal.
I love it. I can email it to you guys. Are you guys getting any of the kids doing this TikTok thing where they kick on the door? So
Bring it to this afternoon.
I live in a gated neighborhood in Boca. I'm in the city of Boca. And I can tell you, we have had that happen 3 times.
Right.
And yeah, I just had, a neighbor had it happen last night, caught it on tape.
So
Yeah, that's the big
unfortunately,
thing.
most likely what that is the kids in the neighborhood.
And here, this is one of the bags, it's a little, I have bloody jellies.
Oh.
So you guys can support the club logo in your patrol vehicle.
Yeah.
And then if you want to put donuts in there.
Oh.
Hey, leave the gun, take the donuts.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys
nice
so
seeing
much,
you. Take
appreciate you guys so much.
Next time I see you, you have to have your point.
I certainly will.
I told her
was
story.
thoroughly educated on it, so I promise.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you.
We will talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Obviously, you know how to get a hold of me. Anything pops up, anything keeps you up at night, you know, definitely get with us. We'll become a big part. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.